Hi, everyone. I'm Vicki Vollweiler from College Financial Prep, and today we're talking about SAT and ACT test preparation. Definitely an important step in the planning for college process. So happy to have Rob Kuletsky and Steve Robinson here with me today. They are College Financial Prep's test experts, or our tutors in both English and math. Welcome, Rob. Welcome, Steve.
Hi.
So we're going to be talking about the exams. Should the students take the exams? How important are they in planning for college? I mean, honestly, I focus on saving money on the cost of college, and I always recommend that everybody takes the test because they're an important way to save money on the cost of college. And they can certainly help with admittance as well. Here, Rob, Steve, why don't you tell us a little bit about the current state of the exams nowadays and how the kids are doing?
So yeah, no problem. I'll go first. So a few years ago, when test optional started becoming more popular, the initial response was, great, we don't have to take these things anymore. But the reality is that because of that, more students have been applying to college than ever before. But these colleges are not building more dorms to accommodate all of those kids. And so what Steve and I stress is you still want to take the test, whether it's the SAT or the ACT, or we usually recommend to take both. We strongly recommend that students take the test and that they don't take the test cold, which is what a lot of kids do the first time. A lot of kids, they'll say, well, I took it once, but I took it cold. I didn't prepare. And that really just kind of becomes a waste, to be honest. You do want to take time to prepare. You do want to see how the test is structured, which is what, I'll work on with students. I'll show them the grammar section. I'll show them the reading section. And the point of that is to really build their confidence. I show them the breakdown of the new SAT, which has 2 sections now. And that test is now what we call adaptive, where part 2 is based on
the new digital format that you're talking about?
Yeah, the new digital format. It's really complicated, to be honest, but the gist of it is there's a part 1 and there's a part 2, module 1 and module 2. And based on how you do in module 1, it will determine how difficult your module 2 is. And we talk about that together in our sessions. As far as the ACT is concerned, that test is changing again. We just got notified recently within the past couple of months that test is now trying to keep up with the SAT and its changes. And so in a really nerdy way, it's actually really exciting stuff to see like what the ACT is going to look like, how the scoring is going to continue for the SAT. And this is just stuff that we talk about in each session with the kids.
Now, let me just say this. We started to talk a little bit about, how many of the schools went test optional and, how I still recommend them for merit scholarships. But also, sometimes test optional doesn't always mean optional. The schools, before they admit students, many of them still want to see that you submitted test scores, that the kids went the extra mile, so to speak. So, just consider that in your planning, with where the student wants to attend college.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the more selective schools may be looking for those scores, even if they say they're test optional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it gives the students like an extra opportunity to show what they know. And if they're prepared, like Rob said, to not just walk in and take the test cold, like without any preparation, if they can have some preparation and kind of really plan out what that first test is, it's a good way for them to show what they know.
So let's talk about preparation a little bit. So what does that typically look like with a student? How do you work best with the students? What do you advise?
I'll go first.
Okay, Rob.
So, I usually try to tell kids that at a minimum, you want to start at least a month before the exam. That's really at the very least. Normally, I'll start with students 6 to 8 weeks before an exam. And the reason for that is that it takes time. I sit with the students one-on-one, we do it remotely, and we take the first session and we get to know each other. I basically do an informal diagnostic. I see what English classes that they've taken. I see what classes they're taking now. I need to kind of assess where they're at. And then from there, I'll give them an overview of the exam that they want to focus on. And then we start with some really easy stuff. And that's where I'll start to gauge where they're at and really where we need to move forward. And then each week, they get assignments. They complete those assignments on their free time. And then when we meet up again, we go over those assignments and everything is individualized, and we focus on any problem that they got wrong or anything that they want to go over.
So, and this question's for both of you, either of you. Is everything that's on the test something that they're learning within their high school curriculum?
No, everything isn't. And I've worked in middle schools and high schools in two different states and seen a lot of different curriculum and helped write a lot of different curriculum. And every school is definitely different and every course is also different too. But there's definitely topics along the way, whether it's a certain way that the question is being asked that probably isn't included in their regular curriculum is, one way that, we can kind of help them prepare, or it's just a different problem solving technique that maybe they need, at least in the math end, that isn't really developed in the regular courses. The other big thing from the math perspective is just the use of the calculator. On the new SAT and the ACT, they can use their regular graphing calculator that they probably use in school for the entire test. And that's kind of been a big change, that it used to be one section with the calculator and one section without the calculator, but they've kind of transitioned to let them have the calculator the whole time. But in addition to their graphing calculator, on the new SAT, they also have access to the Desmos calculator, which is just a web-based format that is very dynamic and can be user-friendly as long as they've had some exposure to it. So even in a lot of the courses that I've taught, we don't have the time to incorporate that calculator because it's just not part of their state assessment or their AP assessment that they're going to take. But it is a great tool that they can use for the SAT. So that's a one component definitely that I try to utilize just to make them familiar with what that tool can do.
So tell me about how you guide your students, tips that, maybe there's a general tip that you give them. How do you help them build their confidence? Because confidence is also a huge part of taking the exams, other than, in addition to learning the content.
Well, I'll jump in. Before, regarding the curriculum, it's funny, anytime I'm working with students, the two main areas that they have difficulty with are grammar and vocabulary. It just goes really back to basics. Grammar and vocabulary, usually those are the parts of the exam, whether it's the SAT or the ACT, where students struggle the most. And as far as, working with them and tips with them, it just comes down to practice. When we have our one-on-one sessions, what's nice about it is that, everything is, just like I said before, individualized. A lot of students will go to, sometimes students will start off doing test prep with a large class or with a large group, and that's really common out there. And then what they'll do is they'll reach out to me and they'll say, that didn't work. I need the stuff that I need help with, not what everybody else needs help with. And so, we work on that. And, we all know every student is different, all different reading levels, all different comprehension levels. And we just kind of work with what we have, and we kind of set goals. If their goal is a 1200, we're going to try and get there. If their goal is, to break 1300, we're going to try and get there. Obviously, we can't guarantee any results, But, we do try hard to, put them into a confident mindset where we're timing them on sections, we're giving them, so much exposure where when the test day does arrive, well, now they know what the structure looks like, they know how to go about it, and how to just mentally try and beat this thing.
So what do you both suggest? I know that you work together often with students. You don't need to work together with students because maybe there's a student that's strong in one subject area and not strong in the other. But how do you propose like working with students? You have 6 weeks, 8 weeks to prepare. Like how does it what does it normally look like?
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I think Rob said some of it before, just in terms of meeting the student where they are, because, in math and in English, just because they're in 11th grade, they could be in a lot of different places. Maybe they're in a different course and a different level of the course. And so it's a couple weeks of establishing those diagnostics of what are they good at? What are they not good at? Is it a certain skill that they need practice with? Or is it, a calculator issue? Or is it a problem solving technique? And then one of the challenges of just the SAT and the ACT a little bit is just what do you do, at least in math, like with a problem that you've never seen before. And that's hard to replicate. And that takes practice. And that's the weeks of not coming into a test and taking it cold. That's kind of developing that skill and that perseverance over, a few weeks of practice of seeing different problems and just, from math, attacking different problems from different angles that sometimes we're not preparing them for being able to answer a certain question, but it's a certain style of question that I think really sets these, SAT and ACTs apart from like their regular, classes and what they're taking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but when you're working with students, like, do you recommend one student focuses on math for 1 month and then focuses on English, or are you both working with the same student during that period? Like, what have you found works best for most students?
So, Steve and I have worked together for over 10 years now. And it's funny, this all really started when years ago I was doing private tutoring and someone says, do you know a math guy? Like that's always the question. Like, do you know a math person? And then they would see it like, do you know anybody who does, who can help with English? And so that's how we kind of teamed up. And, we have a lot of similarities. We think similarly, and we have the same approach where, it's the kids' needs first, the family needs first. Each week we have a calendar and we just kind of work around the family calendar. We know students have sports after school. We know that they have other commitments. Some students in 11th grade are working already. And so we really try to carve out time where we're going to take our schedule and our own personal lives and just meet the needs of our clients. That's just basically how we do it. Sometimes they see me and then they see Steve. It's like 1 hour back to back. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes I see the kid on Monday, Steve sees the kid on Thursday. That happens. Sometimes it's 4 weeks of me and then 4 weeks of Steve. Sometimes it's just Steve and nobody wants me. Like that, and that's all right.
No, but I love the flexibility. I love how it's focused on what the student needs.
Right, exactly. And we just try to accommodate, that's all.
Fabulous. Do me a favor. Parting tips, words of wisdom from all the years of experience. What could you tell parents other than not to panic?
Go ahead, Steve.
I guess it is the practice component that, like, I think when you're not surprised by as much on the day of a test, then it makes you feel more confident. And so I think those 4, 6, 8 weeks that you do in preparation, you're going to be more confident, obviously, in certain specific topics, and you'll be able to answer certain questions. But I think just going through the repetition of seeing what the entire test looks like and knowing what to expect, the style of the test, and what is coming and the timing of everything, so that when you walk into the test, you're prepared and you're expecting certain things to happen. You know certain questions you're going to get right, and you know certain questions are going to be challenging, but then it's not a surprise along the way.
Fabulous. Rob,
Yeah.
any
Yeah, and Vicki, and getting back to what you said really at the start of this whole thing, you know, it's really sad, but the reality is all this just becomes a numbers game. As you know, doing the financials, it's just a numbers game at the end of the day. But it's not just that. We're not just helping the kids prepare for the exam. These are studying skills. It's confidence.
very
It's helping with writing. It's knowing where commas should go. It's knowing what a word means. It's knowing how to deal with stress under a tough environment. Vicki, I've said this to you before, and I still can't believe that this really happened. But, I still tell the story where years ago, a family had hired me because if the student went up 10 points on the SAT, they were going to be eligible for $40,000 in merit aid. So
Yeah.
that's a pretty good investment. I met with the kid about 5 or 6 times. The student went up. I think the person went up about 40 or 50 points. But that 10 points, I think at the time was like 1 or 2 SAT questions. And then the student got $40,000 off their tuition.
Definitely. That's why I always tell people take the exams.
Yeah, if somebody said, if you give me $500, I'm going to give you $40,000. I think people,
And to your point, and I'll just say this, I literally just had the same conversation with a client. I said for the amount that I was, charging to help with her financial aid and her potential return, I mean, it's a no-brainer. The same with the exams in that situation.
exactly.
And everyone should know that, if you take the test and if the student potentially doesn't score as well as you like, the scores don't need to be submitted to every college.
Hmm.
So parents should be aware that that's possible too.
Right. And the other thing I wanted to add too, before we close, is colleges love numbers too. And the reality is you make them look good. The student
Definitely.
makes college look good. And so if that student has high grades, a high GPA, a decent ACT score, a decent SAT score, that's maybe higher up in their range, even though they're test optional, those numbers help the school look good. And those schools are competing against each other. And so the goal here is really just for us to help the kid be confident so that they can have as many options as possible once they apply.
Definitely. Here, case in point, and this was graduate school, not undergraduate. But when I went to graduate school, I had, very good, at the time, GMAT scores, great grades. I got a full ride for my master's. And it was fabulous. And why? To Rob's point, because it made the school look good. They can promote how their average scores, and GPAs are higher. And the students that are above their averages, those are the ones that are typically going to receive the merit scholarship money.
Mm-hmm.
So all good reasons to definitely take the exams.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming today. If you have questions and want to speak with Rob or Steve, certainly reach out to College Financial Prep. You can find us at collegefinancialprep.com and click on the button to be in touch with us and schedule a call. Look forward to speaking with you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.